anyways, for this one, it's a little different because we have our first person on here that's willing to talk about their side of, I guess, their job for what they do as a police officer. We're going to focus on police officers because I think right now it's kind of it's not being talked about as far as the job and people doing the job. Because I think, honestly, if you look at an all-time hiring across like the country for the year, we're probably at all-time low for people that want to be cops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not fun anymore. No, cops don't want to do their job. So if you would, Perry, go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are and your background.
My name's Alan. Everybody calls me Perry. I did 6 years in the Air Force, military police. I did about 5 years doing private security contracting over in the Middle East. And then for the last 4 or so years, I've been a civilian police officer.
So I would think you're pretty well versed in the hardships and the trying times that anyone in law enforcement would find themselves in, and what comes with the job after you get off shift or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty terrible things and got some close friends that have been through some pretty serious stuff. So.
Okay. Okay, good. I mean, we'd like to honestly, it takes a lot of people or a strong person to actually do this. Getting in front of the camera like this, it's like a glimpse, and it just you feel exposed.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking.
So, well, yeah, I'm glad to have you, and I'm curious to see where this conversation is going to go.
Yeah, I'm excited. Definitely something that needs to be talked about. I think there's a lot of people that are just like PTSD from the military and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people that are not necessarily afraid, but just apprehensive about actually getting out there and putting it out there. We're a dominant alpha male and female, but alpha personality line of work, and it's the stigma of you're weak if you talk about it is still prevalent. So.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do with this podcast. I'm sure you watched our first ones with just me and Wojcik and myself. So
yeah,
I think that also what we're trying to do is we're not going to focus on military. We're not going to focus on cops, nothing like that. It's just in general, like it's a stigma across, I guess, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, see, I had a friend of mine send me a stat earlier that says, hang on, let me find it real fast. It's talking about how many Americans, or it says here, during a given year, some 5 million adults are coping with PTSD. That's 5 million adults that are coping with it every day.
PTSD comes from a lot more than just military and first responders. I mean, you could be driving down the road and see a horrific accident, and I mean, there was just a couple of years ago. A couple of months ago, there was an accident here in Colorado where I live. It was a tanker truck that just blew down the interstate, didn't use the pull-off ramps to slow himself down, and ended up causing just a massive fiery crash and killed a bunch of people. And
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
The people that witnessed that, I mean, they could very easily have PTSD from, I mean, it's a traumatic experience. That's what
absolutely
PTSD is. I hate the stigma of disorder. I think it's just, you have post-traumatic stress. I hate that they call it a disorder. It's not a disorder. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just.
Well, if you look,
more of it.
I mean, with that being said, PTSD, the name has changed 3 or 4 times over the years. So I get what you're saying, because it didn't become an epidemic until recently, and that's why they're calling it a disorder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We went from post-traumatic stress in World War I and II to shell shock in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. So on the cop side of things, I got a question for you. What do you think? I know in all the departments that you've been with, and you've been around the world doing this stuff. I know for a fact that 99.9% of these departments offer some sort of mental awareness or mental health coaching, advice, whatever within the department.
Yeah.
Why do you think police officers in general do not take that help when it's offered to them for free and it's right in front of them? Why don't they want to take it?
Well, I think most agencies have chaplains who typically are people who have some sort of law enforcement background or affiliation of some sort, and they're typically right there and readily available. And their job is to be there for the officers, but they're also there to show up on critical incidents and be a comforting outlet for anybody that's involved in the incident. So there's that. You've got chaplains, and then a lot of agencies will offer free psychology, or not psychology, psychiatrist sessions and things like that. I think it goes back to what we were saying a few minutes ago. It's just that it's peer pressure.
Like if you're weak, if you talk about it,
it's hard to step up and say, "Hey, something's wrong. I need some help." And we're there as military, police, any first responders. You're there to help people, so it's hard to kind of turn that around and be the guy to raise your hand and say, "I need help."
Sure. And I think with that being said, it goes back to, you explaining that it's all A-type personalities, men and women. Mm-hmm. And the sad reality of police work, which I'm sure you've seen, is men and women alike. There's people that just aren't cut out for it. And what happens, I think, is they think they are, and they push themselves to the point where they break themselves mentally,
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem in itself, because I've seen it time and time again. Like, it's okay to admit that you're not cut out for a certain thing.
Yeah.
You're not cut out for a certain job. You're not cut out for a certain career, and that's fine. So that's a whole different epidemic in any first responder, any military in general,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's hard. That's another thing that's hard to admit. And some people, they get so kind of devoted to it that they're not willing to give it up, and whether they're meant for it or not. But I mean, when shit hits the fan, you can tell the people that are designed for it. I mean, doing this job, any first responder job, fire, police, EMS, military, you've got to be built for it, man. It's got to be something that's in your blood. You can't teach somebody to it's so cliche, but to run towards the gunfire. Like, you can't teach that. You're born with that. And it's something
it's fight or flight.
So how old were you, Alan, when you sit down and thought to yourself, you know what, I want to be in law enforcement, whether it be MP or whatever? Like, how old were you when it clicked in your head, like, this is what I want to do?
I've wanted to be a cop since I was old enough to talk. I remember my mom used to tell people all the time that as soon as I could talk, I would tell people I want to be a policeman, a fireman, and an ambulance. I didn't want to be the EMT on the ambulance. Yeah, all at once. I wanted to be the ambulance. So, pick on me about that. But I mean, honestly, as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a cop. And that's why I went in the military, because I was 17. I couldn't be a civilian cop. So I thought, well, go in the military. I'd always had the desire to go in the military too. So it was kind of a 2-for-1 deal for me. But I was able to go in and do the military police. And military police is very, very different from civilian policing. But it still gives you a taste of it. It's good training, kind of get your feet wet, and gives you a little taste of it, and
see if you want to pursue it.
Yeah.
So when you were thinking, especially like, I mean, you went in military police first, so surely you thought about this a little bit, but as you went on, like, were you aware of the possibility of having any kind of PTSD or anxiety or anything like that would come with your career, or did you look at like cops on TV and see all these fun foot chases and stuff like that and think it was just going to be awesome? Or did you think that any of that might even affect you when you signed up?
I never realized the way that the things that you see and the things that you respond to could have such an effect on your mental health, your physical health, and just generally just shock you. I always thought I'm a tough guy. I'm not gonna like, none of this is gonna affect me. I'll be able to handle anything, and I did. I mean, I've always done fine in handling it, but it's after the call is the hard part. When you're there and you're involved in it and shit's going sideways, like, you deal with it. You block out the emotion and you just deal with it. But afterwards, that's when the hard times come.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think they don't really, they're not going to, as long as I've been in law enforcement, I don't think it's really even talked about. They don't want to expose that because it'll scare people away. You know what I mean? Like, to an extent.
When I went through the academy, they actually, I went through the academy in 2015, early part of 2015, and they actually talked about stress management and the psychological effects that it can have, because I mean, it's become an epidemic almost. It's the amount of suicides in law enforcement alone are just staggering. It's too much, and I think if people could be more comfortable to seek some sort of outlet, would help a lot.
Well, with that being said, like I brought up earlier, is these agencies, they're to the point now where they know that they have to offer these resources, because one, it's going to help their officers, and two, running on minimum manning, and that shit's just going to go south real quick.
Nobody wants to be a cop anymore.
Nobody does, because look at what's happening. So let's go back to your suicide rates. I know that the number is astronomical this year, the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's in law enforcement in general. And here's what I think part of the issue is we have these A-type personalities that go to these places, these wrecks, I know for me, traffic wrecks was a huge thing. I've never liked it, never will. You have these A-type personalities that are police officers, and you go to a big city with 400,000 people, you're getting call to call. You're called, you got calls holding, to go to. And after a night of that, you come home, say you're working mids, you get home at 6 a.m, you sit down, drink 2 things of whiskey. You don't talk to your wife. You don't interact with your kids. You just kind of get stuck in your recliner and you just kind of zone out. And next thing you know, there's trouble with the marriage. The kids aren't interacting with daddy, mommy, and you're kind of just in your own spot. And then, boom, divorce rate between police officers is astronomical as well. Okay, so next thing you know, you dealt with it really horrible when you had all these resources because you wanted to be this A-type personality, and then you're divorced, you don't see your kids, You come home to a 1-bedroom apartment, and what do you think the only option is? Some of these people think about, So I think that plays a huge role in it too.
Yeah.
Because people just aren't getting the self-help that they need.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, it really is. It's hard to ask for help. I mean, I've had times where I've gotten really in some really shitty places, and I mean, I've never considered suicide, anything like that. I've never been to that extreme, but I've definitely gotten in some dark places after some of the things I've seen and experienced. So
sure.
You just have to.
When did you
go ahead?
Go ahead and finish what you were going to say.
I was just saying, you have to have some sort of outlet, and
an outlet. That's exactly what it is.
Bottling everything up it's not healthy at all. It's not healthy for you, for your family, anybody involved. It's not. I mean, it could even affect you and your coworkers when you go back to work. I mean, if you're all stuck up on something that happened and you've got no outlet, you have no way to release that. And I mean, that's when you get into these excessive force things. You build shit up over and over. And then as soon as there's an outlet, whether you're looking for that outlet or not, you may get in a fight with some perp on the side of the road. And that's where it all comes out. And that's where it gets dangerous in the life.
That can be detrimental.
Yeah.
The department, yourself,
the
person,
everybody.
Because if you have all that pent up aggression, that's how accidents happen, and people ended up getting killed or whatever it may be. Yeah, I see where you're coming from on that, 100%.
Yeah, you gotta find an outlet. I mean, whether it's when you get off, you go to the gym and lift or go run. Something. I mean, you gotta do something to get that out. Talk to somebody. I mean, it was hard for me when my wife and I first started dating. It was hard for me to come home and talk about things, and I mean, it's not like you see this crazy stuff every day. I mean, for you, traffic crashes are bad. Traffic crashes don't bother me. Motorcycle crashes in particular get to me because my brother was killed in a motorcycle crash. So for me to go to a motorcycle crash, it always kind of tugs my heart a weird way. So it's just, it's going to affect everybody different. I know some guys go to certain calls and nothing ever bothers them, at least that they don't let out. And then there's other things that just break you down. Kids. I mean, when you see stuff going on with kids, I've never seen anybody go to a call that involves kids that just brushes it off. You take part of that home with you.
Absolutely.
So how long were you doing this before you started recognizing some of the signs of depression and PTSD from all this stuff? I mean, like, did you go to a call and all of a sudden it hit you, or was it like slowly things started kind of falling apart for you and somebody, like pointed it out for you? Or I mean, like, when did you start recognizing like, hey, this ain't right?
I noticed the stresses of the job, not immediately, but after you go to fatality accidents several times in a month or two period, or you go to domestic where somebody's just had the brakes beat off of them, or some of these calls with kids. I mean, it just builds. It's not like for me at least, it wasn't just like a switch flipped and said, okay, you need to figure out a way to de-stress. But it was just kind of built up over time. And then I just noticed little things, like I was starting to drink more. I was not sleeping well. I was putting on weight. Just little things like that. It just kind of builds up. And finally you're just like, kind of sit back and think things are different. And then you get into your head and start thinking about it, and then you
and then by that time you're like, man, I should have talked to somebody sooner or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I know
my
for
outlet,
me,
honestly, my outlet is my wife. I talk to her about everything. So when I start feeling stressed out, I talk to her. She might not always know what to say or even say anything at all, but just having that person that I trust completely to be able to talk to.
Well, sometimes you just need
not worry about judgment.
Sometimes you need an active listener too.
Yeah.
I've told my wife, she'll sit, not to stray away from the subject too much, but she'll call me up with all these issues in her career. And
yeah,
I think I even told Wodzik this is there's a point, I might have said it on this show. There's a point where all I can do is actively listen because I don't have the answers to everything that she is going through right now.
Yeah.
But letting her know that, hey, unload on me, that's fine. But just know that I might be a man of few words because I don't have an answer for everything.
We're the same way. She'll come home from work and her stresses are different, obviously, than stresses that I see or deal with. But it doesn't matter what job you're in. There's going to be stress.
Absolutely.
You've got poor leadership or poor management wherever you are, and you've got shitheads that you work with that aren't being held accountable, and you're picking up their extra work. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be working at McDonald's, but if the guy next to you is not doing what he needs to do, and you're having to pick up on it, then that's adding stress to your life. So yeah, I mean, that's what we do. She'll come home and she'll unload on me and just tell me about her aggravations with work. And you got to have
going back. So going back to you talking about losing sleep, like when you were starting to see that, that one kind of caught me off guard because I have vivid dreams. Like these dreams were just so vivid that, you'd wake up and you'd feel like they actually, like you were actually reliving certain situations.
Yeah.
And like, I would literally keep myself up. I would find something to keep myself busy,
just so you
keep from falling asleep.
Oh yeah.
So that way I could avoid seeing these things, happen. And I honestly didn't even see it as a problem until like where I was working, like my performance wasn't doing well. Like there would be times that I wouldn't even call in because I would fall asleep right about the time I was supposed to get up.
Yeah.
And then 3 hours after I was already supposed to be at work, I'm getting a phone call wondering like why I'm not there. And, how do you go to your boss and be like, look, dude, there's something not right up here. Like I had to keep myself up all night because this was on my mind, or, I had this dream or whatever. How do you go to this guy that, doesn't understand and explain to him why you overslept when in reality you're working on 2 hours of sleep because you kept yourself up all night because you're afraid to go to sleep to relive all that.
Yeah. I can't really, I don't know what it is. People have mentioned stuff like that before. I don't have dreams. I don't know why. When I was little, I remember having dreams, and every once in a while now I'll have some like real short something, but I've never really had to deal with that. So.
Well, I mean, to caveat off of what you're saying, Wodzik, is how do you go to somebody like that? I think everyone can agree right now that that's the reason we're in an epidemic with mental health issues in general, is because we have never had that soft place to land where it's okay. So I think what needs to happen first and foremost is whoever is at your job, not just your job, any job, chief of police all the way down, they need to harbor that thought process, and they need to not be scared to say it. And, they need to. Yeah. That's a norm right now. It's it's not a social norm. It's almost, just, let's just push that over there to that side. And what needs to happen in any job, first responders, I don't care what job you do. What needs to happen is it needs to come from the top down, and it needs to, and not be some fake ass PowerPoint fucking slideshow. It needs to be a legit, hey, we care about you guys.
Yeah.
If you guys are having these issues, let me know. Let us know. And what can we do to help?
Well, I think that starts with your leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At the sheriff's office, I got in a chase one night, chased a guy 140 something miles an hour down the highway. He was on a motorcycle and he T-boned a truck. And as you can imagine, that didn't end well. My sheriff, and we don't have a small town. I mean, it's not like some podunk small town sheriff, but the sheriff actually got up, got in his car, and came out there just to check on me in particular, because I was the only one involved, but came to check on me and to check on the guys and make sure everybody was okay. And I mean, that meant the world to me.
Absolutely.
That was traumatic. I mean, I had a direct impact in that guy losing his life. If I had chosen to not pursue him, maybe it wouldn't have happened. He made that choice. That's the choice he made. It's a very unfortunate choice, and I wish he hadn't. But it was a huge show of support for him to get up and come out there. I mean, he didn't have to do that.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest deals too is
called me on the phone while we were out there. Called me on the phone. Hey, I just got the call. Just wanted to make sure you're okay.
I think one of the biggest deals too is if you're in that state of mind and you have somebody that comes to you and they tell you, hey man, my door's always open, come talk to me, or they'll ask you straight up, like point blank, put you on the spot and say, hey, are you okay, or do you have this going on?
Yeah.
Before you've had time to process it, you might think right then you're fine, but it's kind of like going to a funeral. Everybody's like, man, if you ever need anything, call me. And you haven't processed everything. I think a good leader will keep that door open no matter what.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people will sit there and say, yeah, I got you, whatever you need. And then when you really need something, you go to them and they're like, that was 3 months ago when I talked to you about it,
Yeah.
Well, and with that being said, it sounds good to employees. I'll be there for you when you need me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it looks good. It looks good on the public because, especially being a sheriff, they're seeing this guy go out and check on you.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying he wasn't like this, but I mean, if he was just doing it for publicity, it looks good, great then.
Yeah.
But when all this settles in and all this becomes a reality and it checks in, that's when you're going to need them the most. And I think that's where a lot of people like, man, I hate it. Like when I go to a funeral or something and people tell me, man, if you need anything, just call. I don't like that because 90% of them that are telling you that when you call, they're not going to answer the phone.
It's just something nice to say that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People like to say what they think people want to hear.
Yeah.
And it's when you call their bluff, that's when they don't perform. And I think that's a problem in itself.
Yeah. It is. And I think
any job.
But I don't think it's just, I was about to say, I don't think it's just this, this particular situation, but I mean, I know if I tell somebody if they ever need anything, I'm pretty good about, following through with it. And the thing is, it may not process now, but I'm the type that's going to check on you about 3 weeks later and say, hey, are you still good? Let some of this stuff process, because when stuff happens right in front of you, your fight or flight or whatever kicks in and you're going to do what you got to do and you're not going to think about the repercussions later. And then when it actually happens, when it's sitting down and it's all coming to light, you're like, holy crap, like that wasn't good, or you know what I mean?
Well, that's why typically when officers are involved in shootings, just as an example, you typically will not try to interview them immediately.
I was just going to hit on this. So when you're done, I got.
Yeah. So because for one, you're not going to remember everything.
No.
Your memory is going to regain over time. And when you go through a traumatic experience, you kind of shut down a little bit in a sense. Immediately you get that adrenaline dump after it happens and you just kind of shut down. So it's been studied, and that's why typically when there's an OIS or an officer involved shooting, they'll wait about 2 or 3 days before they actually do an interview. Now they're going to talk to him, say, hey, tell me what happened, things like that. But to take an official statement from the officer, it's typically a couple days afterwards because of your memory recall and things like that. I mean, you've got officers that have been involved in shootings, and they'll ask them, like, how many shots do you think you took? Oh, I think I might have shot 3 or 4 times. Well, they've gone through a 17-round magazine, reloaded, and popped off half of that magazine, and think that they shot 3 or 4 rounds. So it's scientifically proven you've got a lag of memory recall after a traumatic event.
Sure.
And how much of it do you think your brain just blocks out because you don't want to remember that incident?
There's actually studies where when you go through traumatic event, you have short-term amnesia, I think is what they call it, or something. It's like a small duration of time where you have amnesia. You can't remember certain parts of that traumatic event, and then as time goes by and you start to heal and recover from whatever you've experienced, and I'm talking anybody. This isn't just first responder related. This could be like that crash we were talking about before. The troopers get out on that crash that happened in Colorado a couple of months ago where a bunch of people died, and the witnesses are telling them 14 different stories, and it's because they're remembering bits and pieces. You ask them 3 days later, they're probably going to have a lot more detailed information than what they were able to recall on scene.
So have you ever sat back and thought to yourself, like, man, with all the stresses that I'm going through, because I know, police officers don't get paid what they deserve. Like that's...
Oh, that just adds to it, man. That just adds to it.
But what I'm saying is, like, do you ever sit there and count the cost? Okay, my mental health is going to shit. Like, I can't sleep. I'm thinking about all this stuff. I'm doing everything I can to help myself. But in the same breath, like, do you ever count the cost, or you just say, you know what, if I don't do it, somebody else won't, or like, I'll do it because nobody else will? Or
I would never do anything else. This is what I was born to do, and it's in my blood and it's in my heart, and I've tried.
I know for me,
like, oh, maybe I could do something else. Maybe I could try this line of work. It pays better. You don't get into this job to make money. It's
no.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Yeah, you don't get in this job to make money. But what the gratification of what you get to do for people is, you can't pay somebody enough to make up for that.
Well, let me tell you something. I just talked to a good buddy of mine in my office this morning, and I told him, with the pay and everything, I don't know why people still take this job, because I remember a good old crusty assistant chief that I know of a police department. He said, being a police officer is the only profession where people will hate you because of your uniform. You have firefighters that'll come save your cats. We make fun of hose heads. We have paramedics that'll come save your family.
Yeah.
We have police officers that'll come arrest your uncle.
Yep.
Like when they see a cop get out of a fucking vehicle, they automatically think that someone is going to jail.
Yep.
And you're the worst person in the world. And you could be the best person in the world, but they don't know that. And that right there just adds to people not wanting to do the damn job.
There was actually a Facebook post from my agency where a couple of the guys got out on a call. I don't know what they were doing, but got out on a call, and a little boy saw him get out of their cars, and he ran over and stood in front of his mom and was like, "Mom, be careful, they're going to shoot you." And they came over and talked to her, and the mom was like, "No, they're not gonna hurt us. They're here to do their job or whatever. They're not here to hurt us." And they ended up talking to him, hugging it out with him, and really kind of opening up to him, and completely changed this little boy's perspective of what the police are there for. And one thing, this is just one of my biggest pet peeves, is you walk in somewhere and some mom or dad says, "Oh, little Johnny, you better behave yourself or they're going to take you to jail." And I can't stand that. I will actually tell the kid, like, "No, I'm not going to take you to jail. Like, don't." And I'll tell the parents, "You don't need to tell them that." And then when you explain it to them that you're instilling a type of fear in the kid,
a fear of you.
They think they're going to go to jail, and that's not what you want. I said, if something happens, do you want your kid to seek help from us or run away from us?
Be scared of us, yeah.
And so once you explain it in that way, in that sense, then
it's kind of like, oh shit, the light bulb goes off.
But that's one of my biggest pet peeves. And then the old stupid joke where you walk in, "Oh, I didn't do it."
Yeah. Yeah.
And going to that, like, people ask me a lot of times about the military experience that I had.
Mm-hmm.
They ask, of course, did you ever deploy? Like, yeah, well, did you kill somebody? Like, I hate it when they ask that question. But one of the questions that's asked to me a lot of times is, would you ever do it again? And my answer is always,
100%.
Absolutely. If I could have my whole unit back, the same people that I deployed with, I would do it tomorrow, like without a question, because I had such I guess just faith that they had my back as much as I had theirs, and I would do that. I would do it. I could be 90 years old. You could ask me that question. I'd tell you the same answer. Yeah. As long as I could have my same guys, I would go back and do it all over again in a heartbeat. Because, we had each other's back. And I know in law enforcement and stuff like that, it's the same. It's kind of the same mentality. Yeah. I talked about doing the private security, and when I got into that, I was hoping to have that brotherhood like we had in the military, but it takes a special kind of person to want to do that, especially around here in West Texas when you have oil field jobs paying $30, $40 an hour. Then you want to pay some guy, $12, $13 an hour to give up his whole weekend and holidays and everything else to go monitor everybody else having a good time. I thought that would bring in the people that we needed to be around, and it started getting to where, it was nuts, man. Like, you can't train because you're always working. You can't, it was not a good thing for me. It hurt me more than it helped me than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think, thinking about this conversation so far is it needs to come from the top down.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not a fucking PowerPoint. We don't need a fucking PowerPoint presentation.
No.
We
Nope.
need leaders in any career field, any job that are invested in its employees.
Yep.
And it needs to come from the heart. It can't come from, fuck, corporate's making me do this. Fuck, the chief's making me do this. It's got to be,
Mhm.
I care. You guys matter.
Yep.
You guys, you girls, you all matter. You know, how do you instill that? You got to get that message through all the higher echelon. And I think that's
you've got to have those top people come in and sit down and say, look, don't be afraid to come and talk. Even if you get together, doing a debrief after a substantial incident or event is huge. Doing a debrief, not to criticize anybody, but to say, okay, this is what happened, and this is how we responded, and these were the good points, and these were the not so good points. So next time, let's not do that. And then you kind of open the floor up to let people express themselves. Like that sucked. Like we responded to 400 people get.
Oh, you're about to get
like,
yeah.
Like,
here's another issue that we have in any corporate job, any first responder job, anything. An issue that we have is we have people that we call our upper leaders, but we have, say, our lower folk that they're doing, bottom of the totem pole. You're going to start somewhere, right? But someone fucks up, and then
knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, they get crucified for things instead of sitting there. Hey, you know what? It's okay. You made a mistake. I'm here to help you through that mistake so you don't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
And, granted, not everyone's going to catch on all the time, every single time.
Well,
but you
can retrain smart people, but
exactly. It's just the higher leadership that I've seen in a lot of places outside of first responders is first mistake you make, all right, you're fucking fired. Like, this is it. No, your job is management or upper management to guide your people through it. And I think we're lacking that.
Yeah.
Well, and
leadership. There's a difference in people that manage, and there's people that actually lead.
You got to lead from the front, man.
Yeah. I don't work I'm not a public servant anymore. I'm not military. I don't do private security. I'm not a cop, anything like that. I work a normal job, and I work for a company that is owned by investors. And the thing is, with that, I make a pretty decent wage for what I do, but I have a lot of experience in what I do, and they don't tell you their plans of what they're doing. Prime example, when I got hired on, there was a lady that was doing the job that I'm doing, and they asked if I had any experience doing what she was doing. I said, yeah. So I helped her get kind of caught up because she was behind, because she had no experience in it. She didn't know what she was kind of up against. So I helped her, and then, they slowly started taking things away from her until the day that just came in and said, we're going to let me take over, and, if we need you later, we'll call you, but, with like these little privately owned businesses, I think that you'll find a lot more of what you're talking about. The people that will actually care for you and actually, talk to you and see what you need and, make sure that you get everything, versus these big corporations that are owned by, investors. If they're not getting their money back, they can all pull and then the job's gone anyway.
Yeah.
It's just like I was talking to my boss today, he was talking about how we have some vendors that we can't use because we don't pay our bills within their time limit. But, the longer that money sits there, the longer it'll draw interest, and the more money the investors can get. So they try to pay everybody on the last day possible.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot. And I was explaining to him, man, it's just a numbers game, whatever. If it was not investors, because he was comparing it to the way the company was before we were, bought out by these people. Like, man, there was times that we paid our bills and the owners would have to go get a loan from the bank to pay your employees. The difference is when you're in a position like that and you can actually be a leader, that's great. But working for one of these companies that are owned by investors, you can only lead so much that will go with the plan that they have. I mean, like they cut hours. I mean, they'll do anything to cut expenses to make the investors get the most money back. Even though there's still work to be done, you got to go because the investors are losing, their money or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with that being said, is you're in a whole different game. There's so much money involved in what you do that I don't think the upper echelon even sees the workhorses. You know what I mean? And that's a whole different conversation, I think, in my mind, because at that point, I don't think when you're making billions of dollars, honestly, off the Permian Basin, that the guy pushing tools is
even
they never know your name.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing in itself.
Yeah, you become a number. You become a number, and they don't look at your name. They look at the number that they're paying you hourly. And if Mr. X is making $10 an hour, but Mr. B can do it for $5 an hour, $10 an hour out of the way, $5 an hour goes in there, we say $5 an hour.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter experience, doesn't matter how far we get behind. Yep. We saved money because we put somebody in that position that was cheaper.
Yep. Profit over quality.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And instead of being quality over quantity, it becomes quantity over quality. And I mean, like you said, that is a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But, just going back to this, say you are one of these people that, like me, working in this job, and you know your worth, and you're working and you're getting paid pretty close to what you feel like you're worth, but then you start, things start getting taken, like hours, and then, freedoms, and then all of a sudden, you get told, oh, well, we're going to hire this person to help you out, or, I gave this responsibility and this responsibility you had to this person. You start thinking to yourself, like, okay, well, I'm making too much money for this position, so they're going to, instead of doing, whatever, they're going to bring somebody in and replace me. And then, it's a vicious cycle. And, like my dad has been in this business. He's worked for 2 companies. So the first one he worked for 18 years until he got laid off because they, sold out to another company. The company he works for now, he's been there over 20 years, but he went to work for an independent. And this guy takes care of my dad so much, like, he had cancer and all that stuff. When he had his surgery, he still got paid like he was there because they cared about him, And if that would have been me at the job that I have, I can't guarantee you that I'd even have a job when shit got bad.
For short-term and long-term disability.
Exactly. And it's horseshit.
The greatest gimmick that the business folks ever came up with was paying somebody a set salary.
I believe salaries are a good thing.
Work out of them as you want to, and they're going to still get the same dollar amount.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough all the way around, and I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer in any of this, but it's something that's not visited either.
Yeah.
It's something that's not trying to be corrected. It's something that's not being addressed. I mean, with that being said, police officers, they have all these, they have all these resources, but they don't use them. And that's a problem in itself. And
I think with that, it really does. It comes down to the peer pressure of it. I went through probably the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me, and I've held on to it, and it still gets to me sometimes. But had a little girl commit suicide, shot herself in the head. I was literally there within maybe 3 minutes of her pulling the trigger. Went in, had to pull the parents off of her, do CPR, holding her head, trying to keep blood from coming out while I'm trying to do CPR. And while I was there, I was good. As soon as it was over, I got in my car and just broke down. And
Yeah, yep.
It's tough, man, and like that's something that I'll carry with me forever.
Absolutely.
There's no way to get over something like that, and then the idea of what her parents had to go through because of it.
Yeah.
And what helped me with that was one of the guys that I work with. So afterwards, my captain, my shift lead, he came to me and we talked about it, and I did the whole kind of typical thing of, no, I'm good. And then days later is when it really kind of caught up to me. And one of my buddies that I worked with regularly, I guess he could tell, he noticed that I was a little off. My mood was different. And so him coming to me and being like, hey, I can see something's going on. Let's talk about it. Like, I know what happened, like whatever the deal was, let's talk about it. And that honestly was the biggest thing for me, the biggest kind of outlet or release from all of that. And then again, my wife, I mean, we weren't married at the time, but being able to come home and talk to her, and like, she's been in retail and food service, like waitressing things, bartending. She has no idea how to respond to something like that.
Sure.
But just having that,
and you wouldn't expect her to either.
No, I didn't. But just having that person to talk to and let it out. That's the biggest thing, is just not compartmentalizing. I can't even say the damn word. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you said it good.
Yeah, it sounded good to me.
Yeah, it sounded good. Yeah. But pushing it all down, I mean, that's not good for anybody. It's not good for you. It's not good for your family. It's not good for your coworkers. You've got to have a way to talk about things and get it out. If it's somebody professional, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem admitting I am not comfortable enough going and seeking professional help to have somebody to talk to. I would rather find a friend or someone that I'm close to and trust to talk to. Finding a professional is a good thing, and it's great for some people. But to me personally, I don't like the idea of talking to somebody that I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, when I went to the VA to go get help, every VA doctor, every VA therapist that I talked to, oh my God, it drove me in a deeper hole because I got so tired of dealing with them. And then they sent me to the vet center in Midland, where I saw a lady. She wasn't, part of the VA. She was just there to help. And honestly, if it wasn't for her, I'd be the same way in your mind. Like, I want to go see a professional. Yeah. But that lady, she was very good at her job, and all she dealt with were veterans, and we got into a very healthy conversations that needed to be had, that I couldn't have with somebody else. And man, if it wasn't for her, I don't know that I would have continued to seek help.
Yeah. And see, I'm not.
I mean, like,
as hard as it is to admit, like I don't feel like I'm strong enough to step up and ask for that. Like,
but that's the stigma that we're trying to fight also.
yeah, well,
we're trying to
part of the I'm part
Absolutely.
of it to an extent.
But here's the thing: is there's going to be all kinds of people that see this, and that's the first step. But
so Widener, you asked a question before we came on live, and I told you that'd be a great show question for the show.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask that, but I want to hit on what you said about your VA experience. I was talking to a good buddy of mine today at work, and he said it best. He said that people are scared to ask for help because it's like, I don't know these people. Well, therapists, it just takes the right one to change your mind.
Yeah, and it did.
Therapist is going to reach you. Like,
well, if you go in and sit down with somebody and they're constantly looking at their watch, like,
you got the wrong therapist. That's the problem.
18 more minutes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem. I mean, I had very good results years ago in the VA with a therapist, and there's a therapist that can reach you, and it is scary to think that you're going to go sit down, look at this person in the eye that you don't know, and be like, here's my fucking problems.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Here, let me unload my problems on you, lady.
I'm not to that point yet. I can't. Like, I'm okay sitting here talking to y'all and telling these things because I feel like there's somebody out there that might be on the verge of doing something stupid, or might be on the verge of like, do I go seek help or do I not seek help? Do I just keep keeping this in? So I'm okay with this, and because I think it will help somebody, even if it helps one person.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
That's like our mom.
That's fine, but I am personally I'm not to that point yet. I'm not strong enough to go seek help. And it's not even it's a pride thing to me, I think, more than it is a pure pride.
That's another issue that we face too. It's the prideful
pride
thing. So
pride's a motherfucker.
With you being on here right now talking about it, leaps and bounds, honestly. Because there's probably going to be all kinds of people that watch this that you have no idea who they are. You never will. And that's a huge step.
Yeah. I mean, when y'all first asked me to do it, I know when you asked me about it, I immediately said, yeah, of course I'll do it. Of course I'll do it. But the days afterwards, when I'm thinking about it, like, fuck, I got to get on there and talk about shit that I don't talk to anybody about. Get on here and like I just did admit, I am part of the statistic. I'm not to a point or strong enough in a sense or I guess for lack of better description, to go and seek that help. Like we have chaplains. I know him personally, know him very well. Still don't want to go talk to him about the stuff that I think about. Like, it's just, you have to get to a certain point, I guess, and make that decision that you need to stop and talk to somebody.
Hold on. I want to circle back around to one thing that was said about, I'm drawing a blank on it. Checking on the person where, say you went to a call and the guy went through a hard thing and it's a tough call. Maybe you're not initial, but you show up afterwards and the guy has to follow through.
By initial, he means the first guy that shows up.
First guy that shows up, yeah. So you're not initial, and maybe it's a tough car accident. And then you let him do his thing, and you say, "Hey," when you're on scene, "Hey, you good?" "Yeah, I'm good, good." And
tell Aislinn we said hello.
Can you hear her?
Yeah.
Hey, I have kids. That's what happened.
All right.
That's what happens. But sometimes those people, when you get them, like talk to them, hey, I'm fine. And my buddy today, he said, there's some people that you'll message and they'll be like, I'm fine. But those are the same people that get your ass up. We're going to go out, have a beer and a pizza.
Yeah.
And let's talk.
Yeah.
We need more of that too. Hey, we're not taking no for like an answer here. Like, let's get out. I'm still thinking about you. And that all goes back to the, it's like the leaders that care, the people that want to say stuff because it sounds good. But what about the people that follow through? We need more of that.
Yeah.
As friends, as coworkers, as, all that. So,
like I said, my buddy that we were sitting in a gas station parking lot and just pulled up driver to driver, and he asked me about it, and we talked. I sat there and cried my eyes out in front of him and went on to the next call. And it's stuff like that really, that's what makes the difference, is somebody actually coming to you and say, look, like, I know something's wrong. So even people that are watching, like, even if you're not the guy that's going through the shit, like, check on your buddy. Like, don't be afraid to ask if they're okay. Don't be afraid to pull them off to the side and check on them, because all of the resources that are out there, and it was my buddy coming to me and talking to me is what made the biggest difference.
There you go.
Right.
And it's active listening too.
Yeah.
Like, I give a fuck about you. I care.
Yep. like,
dude, your accident last night was nothing that anybody should brush off.
Yeah. Hanging out of a bus window. Like,
you know what I mean?
You're not okay.
And, with that being said, too, is you said, your wife.
Yeah.
My wife is my soft spot to land.
Yeah.
I know that I can come home with anything in the world and lay it on my wife, and she'll be there for me. And we're not all that
listener. Like we were saying, it's to have an active listener is good. Somebody that will absorb what you're saying and provide any type of input that they can. But
with handcuffs,
it's good. Handcuff.
Cuffs down.
Yeah. But having that person like on the job, having that buddy come up, somebody that has experienced similar things before and can actually give an experienced input. It makes a huge difference. And but you've got to have all of it, though. Even if you don't have a wife like we do that is involved and is willing to sit down and listen to you. There's plenty of cops out there that have wives that don't like the job that they're doing, and
I need to get rid of them.
Don't want to listen to them, and don't want to hear about their problems. And
if you can't talk to your partner about what's bothering you, you need a new partner.
Fuck, that's another fucking
that's
3
a
hours worth of conversation.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, out of all of this, this conversation went many, many different ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was good that we had someone that's actually willing to talk about their issues, being a police officer and all that good stuff. And, it's appreciated. So I got one last question is, for police officers that go through hard times and find themselves in that I guess thought process, mindset, whatever you want to call it, what are some healthy things that they can do? Like, what do you think is a healthy way to,
like a good outlet, I guess, or
yeah.
release, to me, is just living healthy in general. I mean, you, as a first responder, you have to have sense enough to know that you're going to go through this shit at some point in time.
Absolutely.
So accepting that, knowing it's coming, living a healthy lifestyle is going to make a huge difference. Eating healthy. I know sometimes it sucks and you're call to call and you got to run through McDonald's and grab a shit burger, but it's eating healthy as much as possible, working out, exercising, have a hobby. I can't fucking stand the people that are like, oh, thin blue line for life. Like, it's a job. It's a very honorable job, and I will live by that. Like, I love the job. I'll never do anything else, but you have to have a life outside of the job. You've got to have activities that you do. You've got to have hobbies, go fishing, spend time with your family, hang out with your kids. If you don't have a wife and kids, you've got to have some friends to do something other than go drink at the bar and talk about cop stories. Like,
Yep.
you've got to have healthy outlets. You've got to have healthy hobbies, a routine. Having a routine is a tremendous thing, especially for shift work. People that do shift work, having a routine is going to it makes life so much simpler rather than you go to work and then on your off days you sleep till whenever and get up and do whatever and eat whatever. And like, get up, have a routine, work out, go run, eat healthy, but you've got to have healthy physical and mental outlets.
Well, when you work out, you produce endorphins, and it makes you in a better mood anyway. Regardless.
And you look sexy when you're naked. So,
man, I look sexy naked and fat. It don't matter.
On that note, no, I mean, I think that we covered a lot, and I think having Perry back would be.
I would love to have him back on the show, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to do this, and kind of be the guinea pig and working with us, trying to figure out all this.
Yeah.
This technology is crazy.
I don't know what the hell this shit is.
Yeah, your internet still.
Yeah, I live in the sticks, bro. I can't help it. But no, seriously, I do appreciate you taking time away, to sit down and talk with us. I have one question for you. You said that you're not the therapist type.
Yeah.
Talking to us about some of these stories, did it help you in any way, or is it, do you feel like you're still bottling a lot up, or?
It helps to give me the hope that we're helping somebody else. Honestly, I know it sounds so cliche. It sounds cliche to me listening to myself, but
that's why we're here, man.
I know, but
that's the whole point of it.
But I mean, anytime you talk about things that are stressors, whether it be big stuff or little stuff, it definitely helps. It gives you a bit of release, kind of takes a little weight off your shoulders. But honestly, I mean, if anybody takes anything from this, is don't be afraid to talk to somebody. And I'm not saying go to HR and tell them you need a fucking psychiatrist assigned to you. But
a stress card.
Yeah. Red card. Like, find somebody to talk to. You've got to get it out, though. Bottling it up. And I mean, I love whiskey, but trying to hide your feelings in a bottle of whiskey is not going to do anything but make you cry like a baby once you get drunk.
Yeah.
So you've got to find healthy outlets, find somebody to talk to, whether it's your buddy or a psychiatrist. Don't be afraid to go to a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
It's not my thing right now. Maybe it will be one day, but you've got to get it out. You can't bottle it up.
Sure. Well,
I agree.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So yeah, I think this was a good turnout, honestly. And Perry, like Wadzik said, we appreciate you. We appreciate you putting yourself out there. It's not easy.
No,
Like, every time I get on this damn thing, I'm like, I don't want to talk.
my stomach got in knots right before
Yeah.
we went live.
It takes a
It's
lot.
not easy. It's not easy to
Thank
talk
you.
about things that you don't talk to people about normally.
Well, thank you for your time.
I appreciate y'all inviting me.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you back sometime for sure.
Anytime.
But then again, we're not professionals either. So everyone needs to know that. We're not professionals by any means. We're just trying to talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Right.
The elephant in the room is not being talked about. So if I got to chip away at the elephant in the room, hour by hour, I will.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. And if anyone knows any resources and that can help anybody, please be more than willing to share. I think that'd be fantastic, because I've got a bunch of messages, just from people that aren't even involved in this, asking for help. And the more resources we have, the better we are. So,
and if you can tag me in this somehow with my Facebook. If anybody wants to talk and you think that I might be the person that you can talk to, feel free to message me. Anything. I mean, I would love to be able to know that I was able to help somebody else like my buddy helped me. So.
Sure. Right. And if you like what you're hearing, like, share, whatever, comment, that's up to you. But
check out the YouTube page.
Yeah. So thank you for watching. I guess we'll just go from here.
Yeah. Call it good.
All right. Everyone have a good night.
See ya.
Thank you.